Presentation?
No, I don't see the presentation.
Jeff, I don't think you gave me a permission to put it. It's in my on my screen, but not on yours.
You have permission to share your screen. That little green button that says share screen.
Lance, you like the God now.
Exactly, yes, exactly. So you should have the permission to share your screen.
Imagine that we can grow our children. You know, I have 7. Imagine that we will have a button like that, and everyone you
Right.
cannot talk, you cannot move, you cannot show me. Oh,
there you go.
okay. So actually, I start with just for the details. You know, you see the map of Gaza, 2 million people, and Sderot, it's something like 29 people. 29,000 people. When I became to be the mayor 6 years ago, it was something like 21,000 people. And, you know, it's really a miracle to see the number that going up, something like 8,000 new people that come to this and decide to move to Sderot, even though they know that they will have a lot of problem because the terror that we have. You can continue, Dorel. So, you know, this is the detail about Sderot. We have something like 6,000 dunam, something 150 hectare. We invest a lot of money in the education system. Most of the people have the degree that you know, the test gamma in the hand of the school. We have a lot of people that come from Bukhara, from Russia, from Caucasus. Many people that not born in Israel. And actually, when Russia was destroyed, when opened the gates, many people come to Sderot, where something like 40% from the people, 40%, something like 35% from the resident are born in Russia or Bukhara or Caucasus, you know, the black Russia and the white Russia. And beside that, we have, you know, the people that live here many years. I'm actually not born in Sderot. I'm born in Be'er Sheva, and I moved into Sderot something like 24 years ago. I come with a group of family that decide that they want to live in Sderot, even with I'm not born here. And actually, I was a teacher, and really, it's a beautiful town, and very, very nice people, simple people. And you can see, I want to show you the graph here, show the number of the people. You can see that in Sderot, you can see in 2008, we've been 21,000 people. And after that, we're going down, something like 4,000 people left the town because the problem of the terror. And really, we are now make the celebration of 20 years of terror that come to our town. When I talk about terror, imagine like what's happening now in with your country. Dorel, I cannot. Dorel.
Can you see it?
No, I want you to go back.
Okay.
Go back. So enough. And to explain the feeling, zone, no, well, Abba. When I want to speak about Sderot and what's the feel to live in Sderot, imagine now what's happened with you. You're afraid go outside. We're afraid to meet people. We're afraid why? Because we're afraid that we will be sick and we will die. Why? Because we see that the corona killed many of the people of the world. But really, if you check the number, it's not 10% from the people. It's not 5% from the people, even though people are afraid and people in shock and people are in trauma of the trauma. People now all over the world in trauma. And the trauma is because that they know that they have the chance that the corona will hit them and someone will be sick and someone will die. And even see all the number, and even you see all the picture, the big picture, and the optimist picture, you know that maybe it will happen to you. And this is what's happened to Sderot, and you see the number that going down, but now you see that after that the number will go going up. Continue, Dorel, and I will explain in the. Okay, so you can see we have something like 20, and you can see the number of the rocket. The number, it's always going down, going up, going down, going up. And each time when it's going up, Israel go to Gaza and make some operation. The last one was protected aid. We have Castland, and we have a lot of few operation that the army done in Gaza. But you can see what's happened in the last few years from 2040 to 2070, something like that. You see the number is going down, and actually it was like very, very quiet time. And this is the year that you can see the number that jumping in Sderot. Dorel, you can continue. But look what's happened when we talk about the trauma. Even though that the number of the rocket going down, even though that the Sderot, it's become to be a popular city, and many people come to live in Sderot, and you know what? It's because the mayor. No, it's not. I'm kidding. It's because that we give a very, very good service to the people, and we really invest in the people. We work very hard to make the life the life of the resident that live in Sderot, that will be very good. But the number of the people that suffer from the post-trauma, you can see the details, it's jumping. It's not jump like to 100 to 200. You can see the number from 136 to 654. From 96 to almost 400. And you can see all the number on the total. You can see the total in 2008, it was 232. Now it's almost 500% jumping. So why it's happened? It's simple. It's because the trauma. It's because that when you take a person and say to, and I will give you another example. If I ask my son is in the Golani, in the army, he serves in Golani, and my son was the country, the army prepared him to be a soldier for 6 months, and the army give him everything to be a good soldier. Why? Because one time maybe my son will need to go to some war, to go to some operation, and maybe one time he need to use with his weapon. But what's happened in the normal time of the life of my son? He is in the bases, and when he's in the bases, he feels that he's comfortable and feel very, very איך אומרים, בטוח,
safe.
Very safe. But what's happened in Sderot? In Sderot in the last 2 years, and especially in Sderot in the village around Gaza, we have more than 12, 14 rounds of terror. And when I talk about round of terror, I talk about a few missiles. Many times it can be 200 in 1 week. Many times it can be 10. Many times it can be 20. And that means that we have a rocket that land in the town that we need to find a place to save our life and to find a place that we can go that the missile will not get us. And because that we have the we have the sirens, and the sirens we have 15 seconds to save our life and to find a place to hide. So imagine now yourself, you are very comfortable in your house, in the salon, in the room, I don't know where. I am now in the very, very close to the kitchen. I love to eat. So if I need to go to the shelter in my house, I need to find 15 seconds to save my life. If you do it one time, it's nice. 2 times, it's nice. But if you do it one time after one time, and my children do it more than 10,000 times in their life, and it's unnormal. And you know, if I need, now I'm an officer in the army, if I need to go to a war, so I take the weapon, I go with my unit, and I go to the war, and after that I go back. In Sderot, the situation is that the children, and especially the children, need to be in the same place one day in a war and one day in paradise. One day in hell and one day in paradise. And it's happened in the last 2 years more than 12 times. You know that all the people talking about what's happened and the influence of the corona on the world. It's make us very, very in depression because we need to stay home. We cannot meet our friend. We're afraid to go outside. The business, what will happen to the business? There's no customer that can buy the stuff that I want to sell in my shop. Just in the last 2 years in Sderot, we be in this situation more than 2 months. My children many times cannot go to the school. The business in Sderot cannot sell the stuff that they have because everything needs to be closed. People need to be very, very close to the shelter. And because that, the number is growing up and always going up. And Dorel show you a few details in the picture that what's the meaning of the trauma, but I can share with you my story and you know, I am a mayor of town, and mayor of town need to speak about the strong thing about the town. The beautiful town, the building is beautiful, we have park, we have a good education system, we have a very, very nice community. We work very hard with all the community. But the problem is that we are in the front line. And the means to be in the front line, that the hate of the organization, the Jihad, the Hamas, the ISIS, we are the first person that it hit us. And we are the block. We block it. And if we will stop to believe in our city, in our country, and if we will left Sderot, and if the people that live in surround Gaza will left the village, they will win. And the terror will continue. But because we stay here and we love our town, the problem is that our children suffer from post-trauma. And I have a daughter, her name is a little daughter, her name is Emunah. And when I said Emunah, it's faith. And you can see the picture, this is a few years ago. And Emunah suffered from post-trauma, and she needs to get the treatment every week for 1 hour or 2 hours. And when Emunah was very young, I see that she need help. And actually, I was very angry about myself because I live here. I ask myself if I want to live here, but I never ask our children if they want to live here. We never ask them. And we know that they suffer from because that they live here in Sderot. So we try to develop a lot of program that the children can walk about their fear. And we built a very small 2-room, and the system was very simple. We ask the children to adopt animals, and every week the child, and maybe the girl or the boy, he decide what he want to adopt, and after he adopts some animals, he get a therapist that work with them every week. My daughter afraid to go outside. My daughter Emunah afraid to leave my leg when we go to the park. My daughter almost every day for the last few years, sleep in my bed with my wife. And you know, it's very tough. And it's not about, you know, I have 7 kids, it's enough for me. But imagine that you see your son or your daughter suffering from the post-trauma. But Emunah take the treatment in the animals therapist, the center of the animals that we work with her. And after a few years, I think that maybe Emunah, my daughter, the trauma not stop in her mind. But I can share with you a story that after 1 year, we adopt a dog. His name is Mocha. And the first time I see that something changed with Emunah, my daughter, I remember one time that we have the sirens, Tseva Adom, red color, and we have 50 seconds. And in this moment, when we got the sirens, Emunah, we've been in the home in the salon, and Emunah, the dog was outside, and everyone ran to the shelter, and Emunah ran outside from the door, opened the door, call to Mocha and go with him to the shelter. And it was amazing to see that Emunah, she is not a soldier, she is not in Golani, she is not in Tzanchanim. She is a small, very, very small girl, 5 years old, 6 years old, but she decided that she can do it. And maybe you think that I'm crazy, and maybe you think that I'm a very bad person, what you do to your daughter. But I really believe that we don't have any another country, and we really believe, and we cannot choose our enemy. But I can share with you that in the last year, and you see just a moment, you see before that, you see the picture of the Resilience Center. We work with the government and with the KKL of Canada, KKL of Canada, and with Lance and Osnat and all the team there, and they've been here. We try to build this place of the Resilience Centers. It will be a beautiful place. Actually, we started this building a few months ago. We get a budget from the government. They understood that they need to help us. But you know, if you want to give the best service, you want to build a beautiful place. So we work very hard with a lot of community to build it. And I'm really share with you that I feel that the mission of Sderot, it's not my private mission. I have my private mission because they choose me to be the mayor, and I work very hard with all my team to make Sderot a very, very strong city. But I think that about the mission of the security and the mission about the post-trauma, it's very, very heavy to me. It's just on my body and the body of the resident of Sderot. And actually, I believe that if someone thinks that the mission is, you want to be part of this mission, this is a good chance. Because this place, the people that come to this place will come to this place, the Resilience Center. It's the weak people. It's the people that need help. And really, about the post-trauma, and you know it now because you see what's the corona do to your community, to our community, to all the community of the world. You see, it's, איך אומרים, פוגע בבטן?
It's the gut.
What? Hit?
The gut. G-U-T.
Yes, thank you, Miri. Hit the gut of everyone. And I always say to the people, always we talk about the corona, and I said, you know, day after, and Bezrat Hashem, and we pray to that, after the corona will vanish from the world, most of the people will go outside and say, oh, and they will remember that these 2 months, like a very, very bad memory, but there will be some narrative about that. But day after, Sderot will go back to the normal life of Sderot. And the life of Sderot, it's 95% of paradise and 5% of hell. And this is about the terror but we have a very, very good things that happen because the rockets. That we have experiments about terror and about trauma. And because that, I think that my city prefer very well to this emergency time. And we do a lot of activity with the people. And I believe especially about the moral of the people. I find myself singer, became to be the DJ of the town. I take a walk, and you can see you can see me in the picture. I've been something like more than 30 hours on the street with a very, very noisy music, talk with the people. We work very hard. We give food to the old people. We give something more than 1,050 package of food every 2 days to the people that cannot go outside. We buy everything. The center that Lance, I remember that you come with us with the team and you see the center. We open the center, the telephone number we give for each one of the resident of Sderot. He can call and ask what he prefer and what he need. We have a lot of volunteer. Many of the teenager adopt someone that cannot go outside, someone very old, like 70, and talk with him every day. We actually we start to make celebration of a birthday to people. We check who has a birthday and come to him and give him a flower. We give a lot of things to the people. We give a box of games to the children inside the house because they cannot go outside. We work very hard with the study and the school, and now we're so happy that we open it in Sunday, and we have a lot of problem with the business like you have. But I think that the first thing that in my belief and in my job, in my life, I learned that if you want a better life, never look on the mirror. Look at the window and see your neighborhood and see the next person that live with you. And if he need your help, and he always need your help. If you do something to him, you'll be stronger. If you do something to the next person that stand behind you or near you, your narrative about the story about the corona will be, the corona will not, I cannot stop the corona. This is the government give out all the orders. But I can work very hard about the moral of the people. And if you ask me why people continue to live in Sderot, why people continue to come to Sderot, and each one of you that come to the city in the last 5 years, you see a lot of new neighborhood, a lot of new building, a lot of smile of people. We have many time of sad time. We have a lot of pain in our family, in our children, in myself too. But I think that the morale of the resident and the morale of the town, it's very, very strong. And we believe in our narrative, and we believe in our country, and we believe in our nation, the Jewish nation. And because that, I feel that we continue to be strong. But I can share with you that maybe you can come to Sderot, and many times you can come to the parks and you see, whoa, I don't have any park like that in my home, in my neighborhood. Always remember that the people that live here, they're the people that decide to be on the front line of the war against the terror. And we are the ambassador of our family, of our city, of Israel, and ambassador of you. So this is a little few words about Sderot. It was very tough about the English. I'm sorry that my English is not so the best English, and I hope that Miri, I hear Miri in the past, so I think that Miri speak better than me. So that's all.
Well, thank you, Alon. That was great. And rest assured, your English was Perfect. We understood every word you
I
said.
always say it because I know that you will say it, that my English is
Right.
good.
And I too learned the word for gut. So that's something I learned on this as well. So
Oh,
Miri,
so that's an American thing, not a Canadian thing?
No. I meant the Hebrew term for gut. I didn't know that
Oh,
term.
okay.
So Miri, we're going to turn the floor over to you, and
Okay.
please take it away.
בשמחה. דורל, אתה יכול בבקשה להוריד את המצגת שלך? All right, good evening, everybody. In a moment, we're going to have Dorel stop his screen share. I would suggest that right now you put it into speaker view. I'm not going to put up data right now. I'm sitting next to Tel Aviv. I live in a suburb near the city. I can actually look out my window and see the Mediterranean Sea. And I say that because really for the last 7 weeks, all of us have been living the pandemic life, and I want for a moment to open up an additional window. In Alon's first initial slide, he showed you all a map, and on that map he showed very clearly 2 distinct entities. The city of Sderot, 29,000 strong, on the one hand, sharing with us so well the resilience and the challenge and the trauma of the 29,000 citizens that live in the city of Sderot, and of course, of all of the area in and around the Gaza Strip. Right now, I need everybody, you're sitting at home, you're all over Canada. I need for a moment for us to breathe in deep because I want to talk for a moment about the other side that Alon showed on the map. And he said it very clearly, 2.2 million. 29,000 of the Sderot citizens, but for a moment, I want to talk about those 2.2 million people who live in the Gaza Strip. And from the beginning, very clearly, I want to do a separation, certainly in your minds. I want you to separate people from, in this case, the leaders or the governors or the Hamas. Because I want for one moment for us to say there are 2.2 million people there. Not all of them are Hamas. Not all of them are terrorists. And as we've said already in the past, pandemics don't look and see that there's a fence or there's the end. It's going everywhere. I want to talk about 5 points in which the Gaza Strip, with its 2.2 million residents, is unique. It's unique not just in the Middle East in that sense. I'd even say that it's unique in the world. A lot of the things that are happening in the Gaza Strip are very similar to the rest of the greater Middle East. They're not like Israel. And a lot of things, it's very challenging for me as an Israeli, as a colonel, as somebody who has served for most of my life, to compare Israel to anywhere in the Middle East, let alone the Gaza Strip. So let's talk for a moment about what is the Gaza Strip 2020 during the pandemic. So 2.2 million people, but there's a statistic there, a demographic there that is completely different from what we all understand. Because in the 2.2 million people, half of them are under the age of 25. Half of them were born after 1995. Half of them are in the pandemic terms. What can we call them? Either asymptomatic, a word I've learned over the last 7 weeks, who knew I'd know how to say that? Or, as we've all seen, kids are not getting it in the same way. It's not spreading within kids in the same way. And that's true both in the Gaza Strip. Half that population, over 1 million people, are under the age of 25. That is something quite unique where you have a population of 2 million, 2.2, or 1.1 million are under the age of 25. Second aspect that the Gaza Strip is unique in that sense is that 80% of the residents there from 1948, this isn't something that was invented over the last 50 years or after the last 30 years or under the Hamas. From 1948, from its establishment as a UN association, 80% of the Gazan residents, today that means that we're talking about over 1.5 million people, 1.7 million people, are defined as refugees. We all hate that term. She said the refugee word, right of return. But for a moment, I just want you to put it into the context. 2.2 million people, half the population under the age of 25, and 80% of them are not what you would call active participating citizens. They don't live in an independent state. They're not citizens of a state. This isn't about democracy, not democracy. I'm just talking about a state. And within that existence, 80% of them already before the pandemic started were living off of United Nations handouts, international handouts. It is a poor place. It's not the poorest on earth. You don't really have people starving to death, but we're not talking about something that I could compare to the country that I live and love in, Israel, which is a booming member, well, nobody's booming right now, but of the OECD, of the economically developed countries. And just think of that as a contrast. So I've already given you two distinct different aspects. I mean, it's the 2.2 million, very condensed, half the population under the age of 25, and 80% of that population, both the under 25s and others, are what we call refugees. The third aspect, and everybody needs to take a deep breath. You're all going to hate me right now. Is everybody taking their deep breath? Do you all hate me right now? You know, for the people who live there, nobody has ever, I didn't even know how to say this it's my cynicism comes through because I have a lot of cynicism. I'm very Israeli. And when I do that with my, American accent from my parents who moved here 50 years ago, and so cynicism needs to come through. These people have never been citizens of a country ever, okay? Ever. The West Bankers were citizens of Jordan for a while. Right now, they're under the Palestinian Authority with all of the challenges that there is. The Gaza Strip was under Egyptian military rule. It was under Israeli military rule. It has been for the last 27 years, 26, 27 years under the initially Palestinian Authority, over the last 13 years under the Hamas, but it's not an independent state. And I know you don't think of it in the same way, but who gives the healthcare? Who does the different challenges of how that all goes? These are challenges there that are different from other places around the world. So already you're seeing several different aspects that I talked about here. And last and not least at all is that the Hamas the Gaza Strip for the last 13 years has been ruled by Hamas. Not that before they thought that Herzl and Zionism was a good idea, but under Hamas, they are openly, certainly within this time period, calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. And the biggest challenge, especially in a time period like right now, is that Hamas for the last 13 years, very clearly, very different from Alon, okay? Alon is there for his city. He wants to give. He wants to serve. Hamas are about the resistance. They want the authority. They do not want the responsibility. They're not going to show what they're doing for resilience, for the economy, for construction, for infrastructure. They're not going to show you how you have to invest both in water and in schools and in pipelines and in parks. It just doesn't go that way. Can you guys still see me? Can somebody show me that you guys can hear me? Because suddenly something started different on my Zoom.
I'm hearing you.
You're hearing me. Okay, because suddenly my Zoom showed me, but we're all okay? Lance, it's still okay?
Why your face popped off, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure why there's a download. That's unusual. There we go.
Okay, all right, we're good. Here I am, I downloaded, okay? It's the Hamas, right, okay? Or not. As I was saying, if I take together those different elements that I talked about right now, Gaza Strip is an incredibly condensed place. Half the population is under the age of 25. 80% are very poor refugees sustained by international organizations. In addition to that, they have never been a citizen of a country. They don't know what that means at all. And for the last 13 years, they've been ruled by Hamas. All of these things together bring us, to the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic in a very challenging place. And I say that just because in the background, there is no easy, quick, nice way to resolve the Gaza Strip. In some places, especially when I walk around in Israel, I don't want to have to think about it. I don't think of the Gaza Strip as being Israel's problem. We upped and left in 2005. We've been gone for 15 years. It was open from 2005, 6 to 7 until Hamas took over. And I strongly understand Israeli government policies where they have done a complete separation between Palestinian Authority over the areas of the West Bank, A and B, that are under them, and Hamas that rule in the Gaza Strip. But the implications of what that has done at the end, and I remind you, is that they went from 1 million to 2 million. There's more people, there's more challenges. And the last thing that I want to keep in mind, and again, everything I've said until now is very challenging. Hamas calls for our destruction. Hamas uses the capabilities that they have for what they're going to call resistance for that terror and all the different ways that it comes out. Having said all of that, there are 2.2 million people there. 2.2 million people who wake up in the morning, and for them, their existence is quite challenging. And it doesn't look like anything is going to change, and we need to be aware of that. There is no quick fix. It's like in my very non-PC English, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't, and there is no easy way out. Israel has tried isolation. Israel has tried sidelining. Israel and Egypt are relatively on the same page for the last 6 years on what needs to be done with Hamas. And that in itself is an exception with the changes that happened in Egypt. But with all of that going on, we still do not have any kind of real, concrete, take the last deep breath today, positive policy that will resolve the issue called the Gaza Strip. And I put that on the table right now because every time I get the chance to come to visit Alon, to visit Sderot, to visit the communities around Sderot, to see what it takes to be living next to that, and I don't live next to it, and I'm very aware of that, to understand that we need people who have conviction, who have resilience, who understand that at the end, if we don't live in Sderot and we say we're going to leave there because it's so near the Gaza Strip is just going to move. It's not like it's going to stay static there. So that the challenge right now is to have a kind of policy that both contains it. It's very challenging to really completely isolate it, but there is no happily ever after easy way to resolve it. Not in 2020. There hasn't been in the last 20 years. And it's really in its own way a Greek tragedy. And I say that very sadly. So that's the remarks that I'm going to make for right now. I hand back over to you, Lance.
Thank you, Miri. And so for everybody, I sent a note to via chat. You can send any questions you have to me, and I'll present them to Alon and or Miri as well. So one question I have for you is, pardon me, just got covered up, is with respect to the medical treatments that's happening in Israel versus what's happening in the Gaza Strip. People want to understand, is Israel sharing, is Israel cooperating, collaborating with their Palestinian neighbors in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank vis-a-vis Corona?
So the distinct answer is yes. That cooperation, and as you just said, with the different terminologies, it's very interesting. The cooperation is something that's done health people to health people. But the conduit, the way you do so, is through the military and the security. In the West Bank, with the Palestinian Authority, we have, not a wonderful, but we have a relationship. We have an ongoing relationship that we've had throughout all these different years, and there's no question that there we can see that cooperation is working. But that, as I said, it's medical to medical. It's teaching doctors. It's telling them and explaining them. It's giving more equipment that's needed. What's the challenge with the Gaza Strip? They're doing it doctors to doctors. They're giving the same kind, both of information and of some equipment. But you have the Hamas. If Hamas are cooperating with Israel, then suddenly that means that they're recognizing us. That can't be. So they can't do it in the front door. But you have this gap here between that humanitarian aspect of what needs to be done, world pandemic, and between their overall open way of saying, we're not going to do anything because that's collaboration, the other word that you used. So right now, the bottom line is that we're cooperating in the West Bank, including everything possible. But I want to be clear, they're not going to say so. For them, both Hamas and for that matter, even Palestinian Authority, cooperating with Israel is, and that's the other word that you used, Lance, that's collaborating. That's a negative. They can't do that inside their own societies. And I'm leaving it as a question for everybody right now. Look at this dilemma. So should we not help because they're not thinking us? Should we not do it because they're coming out and saying that we're bad and yet they're willing to accept our help. These are moral dilemmas that I, as an Israeli, stand very strongly. We're going to help, even if they come out and tell us that we're, the hell of whatever we are, because that's who we are. That's not who they are.
Okay, there was a follow-up question to that, which was, what is the role of Egypt with respect to Gaza? Can Israel work via Egypt to interact with Gaza?
It's a wonderful question that a lot of people ask me, and I want to be very clear, both historically and politically. Egypt never wanted the Gaza Strip. Very different from Jordan and the West Bank, Egypt was a military occupier. They never changed their border. The border between Israel and Egypt, all of the Gaza Strip is inside Israel. Egypt does not want the Gaza Strip. Until Abdallah Fattah al-Sisi came to power in Egypt in a military takeover 7 years ago, it was very different. But I'm talking about now. Egypt right now views Hamas as a terror organization. Wow, okay? They see them pretty much in the same way that they see the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt as a terror organization, because they are totally of the same realm in that sense. They view Hamas and all of the additional jihadi groups that are in the Gaza Strip, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, functions of the Islamic State, they view them in the Gaza Strip as being the conduit that brings weapons to the Islamic State region, which is on the other side of the fence inside Egypt, that has killed hundreds of Egyptians in Egypt over the last few years. So Egypt is against Hamas. It's not going to be helping, but everybody's against the pandemic in that sense. I will say, Gaza Strip closed itself down. It's isolated anyways, right? That was my cynicism coming out again, okay? They've been closed down for a very long time. But when they allowed whatever can come through, both through the gateway mainly from Egypt, they put people into isolation. They haven't had any deaths from the virus in Gaza. They have had 24, a little bit more, who were in isolation, who had the illness and have since recuperated. As of today, even tomorrow, they're supposed to be coronavirus free, meaning nobody in isolation, nobody sick, they're supposed to be free. So they have isolated themselves off because they don't want the pandemic to come in. So Egypt in that sense is not helping out more in any way. They have a crossing point, and that's pretty much the only friction that they have.
Okay. There's another question with respect to the IDF and I guess also maybe civilian patrols as well, who have to work the Gaza border even during the crisis. And we want to know, how does the IDF function, with patrols on the border, considering that there's a crisis and isolations required for civilians?
I mean, I'll answer that in that sense. This is both out of cities and in cities. Right now, the IDF is absolutely doing the functions of the IDF. I want to tell JNF Canada, we're strong, we're on our borders, we haven't upped and left because of the pandemic. I spent the day yesterday up north on the northern Syrian and Lebanese borders. I haven't yet gone since coronavirus down to the southern Gazan border, but the active units, what the IDF did to be able to continue to do their regular on the spot activities is the IDF isolated themselves. Alon said that he has a son in Golani. I have 2 kids right now who are both serving. And basically what the military has done is they've shut them off from us so that they're coronavirus free and they're doing their day-to-day activities. They're on the borders, they're continuing what they do. I'll remind you that there's both the security barrier, the fence, and all the different activities in and around. There are a lot of suddenly I'm blanking in my English too, of technological capabilities to be able to look at the perimeter itself. In its own way, for the first few weeks, it was quieter on the Gaza Strip. Since then, I've seen a little bit more. Suddenly there was a balloon, then there was another one. I'm hoping that still they'll keep that quiet, but they have no interest in keeping that quiet, because at the end, their existence is about against Israel and the resistance, and they're not going to stay quiet for much longer.
So I have a question for Alon. So Alon, you'll have to unmute. And this is with respect to the number of people who in Sderot who have contracted COVID, and to what degree are they sick? Have you had deaths in your community what is the level what is the level of illnesses that you've been dealing with?
The beginning, the number was not so good, but now we have 31 sick. Most of them go back to normal, and we have now something like 8 sick. That's the number, Baruch Hashem, thanks to God. But the problem, it's not the number. It's like it's the same with the terror. If you check how many people dying because the rocket, you see that this is not the problem. The problem about the corona, and like you see, first it's the people that dying. Second, it's the people that sick. But the big number, it's the business. The big number is the old people, the person that cannot go outside. And we have thousands of people that been inside in their house 2 months. It's the education system, like you in your community now. And everyone wait that the children go back, and especially people always, you need to work with people that always think what will happen with me if I will back to the work, if my children get a trauma because the corona, if what's happened next day, what's happened even shul, if even to go to the synagogue, I not go to the synagogue, I not go always and not go every 3 times. But 2 days ago I go to see if someone have a minyan there, and I ask myself, it's very 2 minutes from my house, and I not see my synagogue 2 months. And I think this is the really big problem, and we'll see what's happening in the future. And I want to share with you that we work, Dorel in my team, and the people, the therapist of the Resilience Center, we give a lot of lesson like that, like we sit with you, 100 people, 200 people, and in the last 2 months, we get a lot of community that ask us, the resident of Sderot, what we can advise to them, how to do this time. And I'm so happy that this was I'm sorry that it's happened because that, but I was so happy that one time we can give back to the community that give us a lot of, help us, work with us in the last 20 years. And in the last 2 months, we give a lot of help to thousands of people all over the world, from Australia, from Canada, from United States, from Europe. And I hope that really it will be finished and we will get back to the terror.
Well, that actually was a question with respect to the terror. Have you had terror? Have you had Seba Adom, the red alerts, during this time of isolation?
I think that you will hear about if we will make the deal with Hamas about the body of the soldier and about the people that been there, the 2 Israeli that catching in Gaza, 1 or 2. And if Jihad will not love the idea that Hamas bring what he get, and if Jihad will be angry about the deal, you will hear about it. I hope that we will make the deal and the body will go back. I talk about Adar Goldin and I talk about the soldier there. And I hope that we will make the deal, because I think that the first thing that we want to see all of the Israeli go back, and it's not depends if it's a life or it's a body, and especially we are the resident of Sderot feel that they do it, Adar Goldin and all the soldiers that go fight in Gaza, they do it to help us and to make our life better. But if the Jihad will not love the idea, he will shoot to Sderot. And you will hear me again. I always said, Lance, you know this, many times when I talk with people, and I have the center that Arnold Schwarzenegger said in his movie, "I will back."
I'll be back. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to take one last question. There's been a whole number of them that have come through. So I'm sorry we weren't able to answer or to ask every question. But this question is for both Miri and for Alon, and it's kind of a two-part question. One is you've identified that you're speaking to groups in North America, and what are the questions that you're hearing most frequently from people outside of North America, from outside of Israel, Canadians, Americans, Europeans? And secondly, is there something that we didn't ask that you want to share before we wrap things up that came up during our conversations that you think is of importance for us to hear before we close?
אלון, אני מתחילה או אתה?
כן, תתחילי את, לא הבנתי כל כך, אז אני מנסה להבין דרכך.
אין בעיה. I think that one of the things that happens when I meet an enormous amount of groups. Nowadays, I'd say I meet most of them via Zoom. Over the last 7 weeks, I have transitioned into this world. And I say that because we don't see things the same way. And so the questions that I get the most often, or for example, like the question that you kind of could ask Alon, which is, why do you live in Sderot? And in its own way, I think he already answered you. But that's a question that we're going to get. I'm going to be standing on a border, both up north, by the way, and down south. And people are going to say, why do you live on the border? But if you don't live on the border, you're not going to be able to live in Tel Aviv where I am. If you don't live on the border, you're not going to be able to live in Haifa or Afula or Tiberias or Beersheba. It isn't that you just move a bit. So that's something that we get very often. I think that there's a big gap in the day-to-day life. I think that most people do not understand the position or the strength of the Israeli Defense Forces, of the IDF, in Israeli communal life. People say soldier, they think of the weapon, they think of war, and they're not thinking of the social impact that the IDF has on every single one of us, on what we do. There's it's a double-edged sword, even though I didn't present that as a sword, where I talk a lot to people about how important the IDF is, how much it's an important part for every Israeli in the way that they view their lives here. But what's also important is the portion of Israelis who don't serve in the IDF, because it's like invisible walls, those who do and those who don't, and what that does to society. So that's one aspect that I would put there, both of, the questions I get asked the most and the message that I want to convey. Israel's military is a drafted people's military. It's my kids, it's Alon's kids. In this case, I myself served, my husband served for so many years, but it's all of us. And we don't serve in the Israel against the Gaza or the Israel against the Palestinians. We serve in the Israeli Defense Forces. We live, how far can we be from the house? If you live in Eilat, how far away can you be? We serve defending both the borders, the ideals of this state. And the last thing I'll say on this is that during the last 7 weeks, the home front, which is another portion of the IDF, that's a portion that has been, it's not the one that fights the day-to-day battle on the Gaza Strip or up against Hezbollah or in the skies. It's the home front. They're the ones that, you hope won't happen when something comes in, they're supposed to be there. And they have been at the forefront of COVID-19 helping out, because that's who we are. It's all of us together. And that would be the message that I would leave with you.
Thanks, Miri. Alon, do you want to conclude?
תגידי לי בקצרה את השאלה, אני לא הבנתי אותה.
השאלה האחת זה מה לא סיפרת שאתה רוצה לספר, והדבר השני זה במסגרת זה שאתה פוגש הרבה קבוצות, מהם השאלות הכי נפוצות שאתה מקבל מקבוצות מחו"ל?
Okay, so many times people ask me why Israel don't do anything. And it's funny to hear it for people that not live in Israel. And I always try to be polite when I talk with people that live in another country. But, it's a good, in the end, it's a good question, because I myself always talk about it because I feel that if I will not have a good answer, I feel that no one cares about the situation here. But I can tell you that I remember that one time we have some program that the Channel 2 made in Sderot, and then they interview some some woman. Her name is Masuda, I think, and they asked her. They said, "What do you think about the situation of Sderot?" And she said, "The army need to destroy Gaza, and the army need to go to make operation." And the next question he asked, "And what will happen with the soldier?" And this grandmother said to the man that asked this question, he said, "No, I will take all the rocket, but I not want that one soldier will die." And I think that this answer, this is the spirit of the people that live in Sderot. I think this is the spirit that people that live in Israel. And we know that we cannot make a war every day, not every 2 days, not every 1 month. I really hope that Sderot will be a place that the Arabs that live in Gaza will invent. We will invent there. I dream, and all the mayor of the villages, the area surround Gaza, we hope that we can make a factory and hospital and university on the border, and it will be a place that help to them to live and help to us to develop. But for my experiment of 20 years, I think that the problem is a very big problem because it's not about economic, it's not about border, it's not about electricity, it's not about ground. It's about belief of that. And I hope that maybe the time will change because really, I think that, and I say it especially after the last week, that last 2 weeks that we have the memory of the Holocaust and the the day of to remember the soldier that died, and the days that we celebration, 70 years of the states of Israel. I believe that peace will come because the Corona show us that we are not so smart, we are not so strong. We are the people think that we rule the world and we can do whatever we can do. And the Corona show us, in one moment, everything changed. And I believe that if we have a time to live, I prefer to use it to make good things and to make the world better. That's
Thank
all.
you. Thanks, Alon. So at this point, I just want to wrap things up. I want to take a moment to thank Osnat Dvorkin, JNF Canada's project manager in Israel, who has coordinated Miri and Alon to join us today. So Osnat, thank you very much. This was a wonderfully informative seminar, and I think it was a great pairing. Point number 2, I want to take a moment to thank Miri and Alon for your wonderful insights, your excellent answers to our questions. You two are great friends of JNF, and we're thrilled that you're able to join us for this hour. And we're so appreciative of your time. And it really was a wonderful hour spent. And then point number 3, I want to thank everybody for being on this call, our supporters of JNF, for wanting to learn more about Israel, for wanting to be engaged. Even though we can't visit Israel, JNF puts on these webinars so that we can have a point of connection digitally via the web. But this is our point of connection. This is our lifeline. So connecting to Israelis via Zoom is really something that we're going to continue to do. And we have a number of ongoing webinars that will be of interest, and some are heavy topics, some are more fun topics, but we're going to continue to do a variety of different things to meet a variety of different interests. So to everybody, thank you so much for participating. Please join us in our campaign to help save Israel's lives through purchasing of ventilators. And again, everybody, have a wonderful day. Yom Tov L'Kulam.
Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.
כל הכבוד.